The communards never can say goodbye. We're about to say hello. He's fresh from TalkSport. Just as we requested him, we said, have him washed and brought from TalkSport, and that's what's happened. Who are we talking about? Vass, over to you.
Our next guest is uniquely a priest, presenter, pop star and prolific author. His latest novel, A Death on Location, is out this Thursday, and his borderline national trinket tour continues this week. So please welcome the very clever and Reverend Richard Coles.
Let's hear for Richard Coles. All right, Richard.
Thank you very much.
How are you?
Well, I'm smelling a bit of liniment from the TalkSport studio. I've
Yeah,
been giving them my
now.
valuable insights into the transfer window.
Yeah, so tell us, there are trans issues, there are trans
Always
deadlines.
trans issues, always.
How was it for you? What did you chat about on TalkSport?
Well, I talked about my love of Chorley FC, which is very important.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone seems a bit surprised, A, that I like football, because I was the last to be picked for football all through my childhood. But I do love football, came to it quite late in life, and I'm an Arsenal fan. But my brother-in-law, Mark, is Victor the Magpie. He's the mascot for Chorley. So, of course, where Victor the Magpie flies, I follow.
Have you ever tried the suit on, the outfit on?
Well, I have actually, yeah. He was my special guest on the Borderline National Trinket Tour Leg 1. When I went to Chorley, he did 2 nights with Victor the Magpie. You don't want to get into that.
No?
He ran a marathon in it. He ran the London Marathon in it.
Now, of course, famously, if you have to, or notoriously rather, if you are going to run in a fancy dress outfit, a proper one, not one of those 15 quid ones that, you know, all the glory and none of the work, then you have to train in it. So he would have done a couple of training runs as a magpie.
Oh, and he won the mascots race as well that year
actually?
too. Yeah, he's a ref, and as you know, most refs are fit as fleas.
They are super fit, aren't
They
they?
have to be
Especially
super fit.
nowadays.
Yeah, and also thick-skinned, especially nowadays. So Mark is an inspiration to many. He does lots and lots with girls' football in Lancashire, and he's a terrific guy.
Yesterday, we didn't actually mention it, but yesterday the initial lineup for Soccer Aid was announced. I didn't see your name in there, but I'm sure it's just because you're not on the radar.
I'm very good at bringing on the plate with the oranges.
Yes.
That would be my thing. And if there were a role in Soccer Aid for someone to do that, I would volunteer.
Oh, well, I'm sure there is, and you should get on there, because the lineup's pretty amazing this year. It's always amazing. Soccer Aid is a good thing. Couple of weekends' time, isn't it? Second weekend in June.
Well, so many great... I mean, Matthew Lewis, who plays Daniel Clement in the TV adaptation of my books, which is just coming in October, very, very handy footballer, big Leeds United fan. He nearly made me go to a Leeds game.
Right.
I managed to dodge it with a kind of very tissue-thin excuse, but there you go.
Well, has he been picked for Soccer Aid?
I don't know. I think he's done it before. I know he's a handy player.
Right.
But lots of actors. I mean, how many actors are good at football?
Oh, annoyingly quite a lot.
Yeah, Ralph Little, for example.
Ralph Little is so good at football, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Right, your book.
Yes.
Right, the Reverend Richard Coles, A Death on Location, another Canon Clement mystery. Not my kind of thing. But you know.
It is your kind of thing.
It got me across the line.
Oh, that's so good to
I
hear,
loved
Chris.
it.
Thank you.
I was going to read the first 50 pages. I have a rule.
Yeah.
So if you're going to read a book for work or you're going to read a book to see if you like it, this is the formula. It's 100 pages minus your age is what you have to read. And then you can either interview somebody about that or you can carry on reading if you like it. So that'd be 41 pages.
Right.
I'm on page 103, Richard.
Oh, my goodness, Chris, that's so flattering.
Honestly, it's so good. It's so good. So set it up. The movie business comes to town.
Yeah, well,
or at least to village.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's the 5th in the series of the Canon Clement mysteries, and it's set in a small village in a shire county in England at the end of the 1980s, beginning of the 1990s. Problem, logistics, is after a while you've murdered too many people. You sort of run out of victims. So you either have to go off-site, which I did in the last book.
Or bring some new victims in.
Bring some new victims in. So there's a period drama being filmed at the big house, Champton House.
Yes.
Everyone's all excited about
Yes.
that, but unfortunately, at the end of one day's shooting, the cast is lighter by one.
Yeah, not via another shooting. I don't want to spoil it, but maybe of some other means. On the back cover, rather, praise for the Clement series. An absolute joy, funny, clever, and wonderfully plotted. Praise be, says Adam Kay. Let's hear for Adam Kay's review. There we go. Keep that door open. Philip Pullman, all the elements that make up a classic detective story, a pitch-perfect setting, a genuine puzzle, a gruesome murder or more, and engaging characters. Philip Pullman. I've been waiting for a novel with vicars, rude old ladies, murder and sausage dogs, et voila, Dawn French. The Reverend Richard Coles gives us a serpent in England's pastoral Eden. And whodunit fans can give praise and rejoice Ian Rankin. Perfect for those who like their cosy crime to have a cutting edge, Ben Aronovich. Even better than I knew it would be. Really well plotted, beautifully written, charming without being twee, funny, intelligent and mordant too. Sounds like it could be from your English lit teacher, but it's from Indian Night. Yes. High praise indeed. But it is story number 5. So how do you know so much about the movie business?
Well, partly because I've sort of hovered around on the edge of TV sets really for a bit. Partly because I was very nearly Eric Cantona's chaplain in the movie Elizabeth.
Really?
But unfortunately there was a union issue which did not... That was because I was a huge Eric Cantona fan and a friend of mine produced it. So that didn't happen. But partly also because I love doing... in corporate gigs, which lots of people hate, I love them because you drop down into somebody else's world.
Yes.
And whenever I do, I say to them, how would you murder someone and dispose of a body in your line of work? Because I'm always looking for plots, obviously. Poured concrete, that was very useful.
Yes.
I did the British Tunnelling Society, that was very useful. British Parking Awards, that was very useful.
Yes.
But a film location is actually, what I wanted to do was kill someone in full view of everybody.
Yes.
Without people knowing who it was.
It's very clever how you do it. It's very
Well, thank
clever. I'm fascinated by the hierarchical aspect of the movie business because there's showbiz nonsense, then there's movie showbiz nonsense,
Yeah.
which takes it to a whole different level. And in the book, you talk about the fact that certain members of the cast, they will eat together at break times. So actors will, sort of co-stars will eat with co-stars. Lesser stars will eat with lesser stars. The extras will eat together. And they don't have to, but they just do. But then you say that people playing servants might eat with other people playing servants, and we'll fall into type very quickly. I thought, actually, that's true.
Well, that is true, and I know it's true because someone I know who works on Downton Abbey told me that.
That's a great fact, isn't it?
I think it's something with the way we organise ourselves, but also we're conscious or sometimes unconscious of pecking orders, I think.
Birds of a feather.
Well, exactly. And film. I mean, I was an executive producer on the telly version of my books, and I thought, well, what does that mean? Well, I tell you what it means. They give you a pair of headphones. Yes. And if you're a person with a pair of headphones, it means you're important. They may not be plugged into anything, but if you've got the headphones, people will kind of bring you a sandwich.
If you go to an elite sporting event, right, and you want to get, in access all areas, if you get a pair of headphones from like anywhere you like in the world, and the walkie-talkie, and hang that on your belt, put the headphones on, you don't need a pass for anything.
I'll tell you something else that works at that, Chris. A dog collar. No one challenges you. Nobody can walk anywhere.
What about a dog collar with a pair of headphones and a walkie-talkie?
Come on. Access all areas.
You got it. You can rule the world. Now, Mrs. Porteous is the poor unfortunate. We can say that much, can we?
We can say that, yes.
Okay, what else would you like to say about Mrs. Porteous?
Well, she's one of the regular characters. I mean, it's interesting because I've been with these characters for 5 books now, Chris. And then sometimes they really change. People always say this, writers, and I always thought it sounded like magical thinking, that after a while the characters sort of go in their own direction.
Yes.
But it's true, and I've always rather liked Margaret Porteous because she's a bit of a snob, and because she sort of has to scramble a little bit to keep her place in Champton's social hierarchy. But there's a backstory to her which emerges in the course of this book. And I'm often very interested in, and I know this from pastoral ministry, is you're often asking yourself, why did someone behave like that? What's going on in their lives? And then sometimes you'll discover why. And I hope it makes you a bit more sympathetic or empathetic and a bit more generous in the judgments you bring to people, because everyone's fighting their fight, right? Everyone's got their backstory. And
yeah, and that's all the way through this book.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things I wanted to write about.
Oh, it's so clever.
Why people do the things they do, because that's what vicars and detectives have in common, Chris. My brother's a detective, retired now in real life, and we were often swapping notes about why do people do that.
Yeah.
Interviewers too, right?
Yeah, well, you were talking about, you ask people whose worlds you parachute into how they might commit a murder. I would interview you to death. Would that be all right?
Yes,
should we have a go?
It'd be noble death. I like that.
I love the little speeches, and they're so sort of precise and concise. There's one from the doctor here. A perennial question, said Daniel, at least since someone first embalmed a pharaoh. Not for me or not anymore. They're just bodies, like any other. but you have to make something of it. You preach the resurrection of life. And the doctor is talking to, of course, the vicar. Against the fact of death, if I may say so, Padre. He added this, noted Daniel, in the tone of Robin Day saying something brutal to politicians. But we established the fact of death. The resurrection makes it in there, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm always writing as a priest, actually, and as a former vicar. I think one of the things I've been very lucky in my unusual circumstances, Chris, because of my weird life. It's enabled me to kind of add a voice to the mainstream conversation where most people who say the things I say don't get a chance. So I suppose I'm not that kind of organised about it, but I'm writing out of my own experience, and that is my experience. And I think we've got useful things to say. I like the thought of being part of the conversation that everyone else is having, rather than just a voice on the margins shouting at the television, which is what I do at home.
Daniel, your character, says, I don't deny death. I preach the resurrection, and death is required for that to happen.
Yeah, I think often people will say to me, I wish I had your faith. Yeah. I always want to say to them, I don't think you do, really. So I think what you mean is, I wish I had a get-out-of-jail-free card.
Yes.
I wish Jesus had my lottery numbers. And It doesn't work that way. You don't dodge any of the tough stuff. It's about facing the tough stuff, really, and trying to stand up while that all happens around you and remain standing. The
furnace, the fury, and the fire of birth and death.
Exactly that.
What's it? What have I written here? Daniel. Oh yeah, this is good. Yeah. Daniel, your character. Daniel had had enough and made to leave. Right. This is on the film set. There's been a murder, and the security guard held up a hand, but Daniel gave him one of his Old Testament looks, and he yielded. I love that so much.
Well, it's interesting that often there's something, because I've noticed if you're dealing with security have often got a background in the military, right?
Yes.
And the military have padres, so they're used to having kind of people around them with this kind of spiritual authority. And I have noticed that it does sometimes work with people who otherwise might not be so quick to bend.
It's the equivalent, I would imagine, the ecclesiastical equivalent or theological equivalent of a partner's death stare. Because when Tash gives me the death stare, all picture, no sound. I get it. I'm in trouble. I need to pipe down.
But the death is good because it's not menacing, it's blank, isn't
of course.
it? And what you do is you put into the death stare your anxieties, right?
Yeah. And is that so the Old Testament look?
Yeah.
Do you have one?
I do.
Is that half of it you're giving to me now?
It's this.
Oh no, that is so Old Testament. Oh my God, the OT from the OG. I took it out of my bag today, bizarrely. I don't know why, but I carry, not all the time, but I went on holiday last week. I carry the New Testament around with me a lot.
Yeah.
I've not really read the Old Testament, but I've read the New Testament loads of times. I'm a New Testament guy.
Yeah.
Can you get me to the Old Testament party, please?
Well, if you're reading the New Testament, you are reading the Old Testament. In fact, the New Testament arises out of the Old Testament.
Okay.
And also, lots of it quotes the Old Testament. Jesus was a Jew of his time and period. The Hebrew Scriptures were his Bible. The Psalms were his hymns. So when you're reading the New Testament, you're reading the Old Testament projected forward into a kind of new dispensation.
Right.
But you're already there. What you don't have to read are stories about people slaughtering 10,000s with the jawbone of an ass.
Yes.
That might work for you, Chris. I don't know.
No, it doesn't work for me. That's the problem. That's more. See, would you say the New Testament is sort of if the Bible were a TV thing, right? Would the New Testament be the reality show, the Osbournes of the Old Testament?
That's great.
Do you know what I mean?
I love that.
Because it's more.
Dear 54, the carpenter's house in Nazareth.
Well, it just seems a bit more real, doesn't it? Because you get those testaments from Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and
I would say as a Christian that the New Testament is all the promises of the Old Testament fulfilled in a completely surprising way. If I were Jewish or if I were Muslim, I'd take a different view on that. But that's the Christian view. So when you're reading the New Testament, what you're reading is everything that people have hoped for and longed for and anticipated is suddenly made real, but in a way that nobody quite gets.
Wow.
Good stuff.
Good stuff, mate. Good stuff. Let's talk about some other characters in the book. Let's talk about the boss, the owner, Bernard.
Bernard.
Now, he's single and free to mingle.
He's very free to mingle.
Yeah. And I'm only on page 106, but I just sense something might be going on there.
Well, I've got something in mind for Bernard.
Not in book 5, though.
No, we're looking forward to a couple of books, I think. But Bernard has had his third wife. Has returned to the Italy where she came from.
She just got bored, didn't she?
Well, I think she really liked the house, and after a while she realised the house was insufficient compensation.
Because he says, well, why did you marry me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Such a lovely house.
And his other two wives croaked it?
One of them went off to run an owl sanctuary with some
yeah.
lesbians in Scotland.
Got it.
And then the other one went off and found her way back into the Beaumont in London.
So they just left. So
the thing is, I've spent a lot of time in rural ministry, and I've come across a lot of people like that who are the inheritors of an aristocratic tradition and a family and a house. And actually, it's hard to make that make sense now because it belongs to a world which is past. So often they're sort of trapped in a kind of loyalty to a past which doesn't really make sense in the present. And anyone who's Church of England would relate to that. It's a bit like being legacy media in a digital world. Do you know what I mean?
Of course, history doesn't repeat itself, but human beings do.
Yeah.
We just do.
Yeah.
That's just the way it is. We should be passing on the baton of experience from generation to generation, but we just forget the baton bit, which is unfortunate.
Drop the baton.
Drop the baton. Drop
yeah.
the mic, drop the baton. When we first met years and years ago, I think it still had an 80 in it. I think it was an 89 or 1990.
It was.
Did you have any idea you were heading this way?
No. I mean, if I'd been more attentive and not so kind of easily kind of distracted by nonsense, I think I might have seen it coming, Chris. And I remember I bumped into my old school chaplain after I'd started off on the path towards ministry. And I went, well, I bet you're surprised to see me. And he went, no.
Wow.
And my nephew, Ollie, when he was a teenager, he said to me, were you in a band? And I went, yeah. And he went, what, a real band? I went, yeah. And he looked me up on YouTube and he saw a video. And at the end of it, he went, blimey, even then you can tell there's a vicar struggling to get out. Yeah. So, I was probably all the evidence was there to see, but I was the last to see it.
What would you do now if you were in charge of the church? If you could call all the shots, what would you do?
I would try to shed some of its managerialism. I would try to get us to focus on what our mission is, which is to be agents of God's grace and holiness in a world that is desperate for them. I would stop being so concerned about being a kind of bedroom monitor, and I would try to deal with people where they are and to bring to their lives the richness and the fullness that Jesus asks us to do.
So that sounds like a great sort of mood board.
Yes, exactly. When you get to the granular detail.
Yes.
Well, you've got a huge plant to look after and insufficient resources to do it. You've got the history of our terrible performance on safeguarding, which is something we're still struggling to begin to face up to and deal with properly. And we're dealing with a world in which what we represented becomes more and more marginal. So the challenges are obvious.
And where
but challenge is good, though, Chris, I think.
No, it's required, isn't it?
Find some resources.
No, and the heavier the weight on the bar, the stronger you get.
Yeah.
The fiercer the pruning, hopefully the stronger the growth. Forced or unforced, necessary or voluntary.
Are you a pruner?
Yes, I am.
I think I'm a pruner too.
I spent all yesterday pruning.
Did you?
Yes.
Yeah, I would. Very, very tough this year. Ben, the guy who helps me in the garden, does all the work in the garden.
Right.
He's a brilliant pruner.
The bloke you watch in the garden.
Yeah, I do. He does a great job.
I was talking about life.
Oh yeah, that as well.
Yeah, no, I'm simplifying at the moment, but because it's all been so complex in the past,
sure.
People say, you do the radio. What else are you doing? Well, that takes getting up at 4:00 and getting home at midday. So there's 8 hours. Yeah. Then we got the kids. Then we got a bit of fitness going on. Then we try and eat the right food. Then we try and go to bed at night. So there's that. That sounds quite full anyway. But if you would require more of an answer, then I'm spending the rest of my time simplifying my life,
exactly.
Which seems to take forever because it is very much gardening.
Well, we've done that. So I'm downsized, now retired to East Sussex, living in a smaller house. And that was very interesting. But my smaller house has now just become a bigger house because my partner Richard is moving in at this very moment. Don't have to be there, thank you, God. But that's because we both had to simplify.
Sorry, was that a real thank you, God, or was that?
That was a real thank you, God, yeah.
Great.
So we don't have to. So we've got to slim down even more to make room for each other.
It's so crazy.
Life is all about slimming down to make room for each other.
Enlightenment is easier if the lighter you are in the first place.
Loving all this. It's
good morning, Chris and the team. My wife Amanda says Gary and I are recent Virgin Radio converts. Welcome to our flock. Welcome to this daily communion. And this is our first ever WhatsApp. We love the show and we both read and enjoy Reverend Richard Coles' Canon Clement series of books. Can't wait to read the new one. Well, I've read 106 pages and I'm not I wasn't in in the Clement communion, but I am now. I love it. Lee says, I absolutely adore Rev Rich. He's such a funny soul, and I love listening to him. Can't wait to read his book. You do have a wonderful, wonderful sense of humour. And you're also a very serious person, because the two are not mutually exclusive.
No.
That's an interesting and very useful mixture.
Well, it's nice you to say so. I've always thought that if you're dealing with solemn subjects, cultivate a lightness of touch, right?
Yeah.
And also, there's nothing
You already had one.
I think so. Well, I think that comes from my mother. My mother had a very unquenchable sense of humour, I think, would be. You know, when she saw me on Strictly, she saw me do a cha-cha. I went to see her the next day. And I said, what did you think? And she said, I thought you looked like a walrus that had been tasered.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Mum.
That's not fair.
It was fair, really. it was very fair and precise.
Aussie Jane thought you were on Love Island. She said, yeah, and he was on Love Island as well. I said, don't think he was. Don't think so.
I mean, on the Jungle, I did get to share a bed with the lovely Maura Higgins of Love Island, although somebody remarked at home that's a bit like offering a pork pie to a vegan, isn't it? But there you go.
You did technically sleep with her, didn't you?
I did sleep with Maura, yes. More than once.
What's this about? Depart, O Christian soul, out of this world, in the name of God, the Father Almighty, who created you, in the name of Jesus Christ, who redeemed you, in the name of the Holy Spirit, who sanctifies you. May your rest be this day in peace, and your dwelling place in the paradise of God. That's in the book. Where's it from?
It's beautiful. It's one of the sort of traditional prayers from the Anglican tradition. It's what you say to people when they're at the end of their lives, which is one of the great privileges of being a priest, is that you do get to be alongside people when they face the mystery of eternity. And often they will tell you stuff that's on their soul and their mind and their conscience. It's been there for decades sometimes. And then they face forwards and off they go. And it's a deeply... That's what we should be doing, Chris. That's really what our role is, I think. We should be with people on the threshold of the eternity that awaits them. We shouldn't be kind of crossly telling them off for doing things we think are naughty.
Is there a common theme in those conversations?
I think often it's people see all of a sudden their life in perspective, and often it's, I wish I had been more to somebody. Very few people say, I wish I'd spent more time in the office, in my experience. And often... I think the things that have moved me most have been things that have cast a shadow over their life, sometimes for decades. And you think, if only you brought this up before, we could have shone some light into this.
So bearing in mind what you know and what you've experienced firsthand, what could you advise us to do today?
To not delay to tell the person you love that you love them, even if it's embarrassing and makes your palms get sweaty. Don't delay to do that. You will find at moments in your life that sort of clarity, or sometimes that kind of ultrasound, which suggests to you what the real dynamics are in a situation and what's important to you and what's important to other people. Don't be cowed by that. Don't hesitate. Cut to the chase.
So I heard love is infinite, of course. Love is real love, and there is only real love. There is only unconditional love. People say, oh, I love them unconditionally. Well, true love is unconditional anyway, so it goes without saying. Love is endless, love is infinite, love is boundless. Love is often coupled with understanding. So if you get love and understanding, it therefore by then also means that your understanding must also be limitless, boundless and infinite. And I heard that yesterday for the first time. I thought, oh, that's helpful.
Yeah. The thing is, we can't do that unaided, Chris. And that's because we are self-regarding creatures and we are imperfect. And out of our crooked timber, no straight thing was ever made. So we need to have something somewhere, I think, to just give us a sense that that is a livable life. And to live in anticipation of that in the here and now. We'll never do it entirely well because we are what we are. But we have a model that goes before us. And once you start living in anticipation of the world that awaits, well, then it can be a wonderful, transforming thing for you and people around you.
Having been around end-of-life situations as much as you have, how does it help you with your own perspective on death, whatever that is?
Well, I think I faced death with equanimity. I'm not really bothered about that. Dying is another matter. My care package is something I think about an awful lot, and I highly recommend writing best-selling novels
Tell us
to provide.
about your care package.
Well, I just spend a lot of time, Chris, around people at the end of their lives, where life gets very tough and very expensive.
Yes.
So me and a group of friends, we've thrown in our lot together. We live in the same place, and we're going to sort of see each other out. And I hope that as we approach the end of our lives, we'll be able to take a bit more of an active role in how we sort out our care. That's the plan.
Have you talked about that before?
A bit. Not.
That's really interesting.
I think lots of people are interested in that, and I think one of the real issues facing us as a society is how we get to the end of our lives, bearing in mind that the last couple of laps of that could be extremely onerous in terms of cost and also in terms of what it takes out of you and the people who care for you. So thinking of imaginative ways of pooling our resources, because I think you could make something that looks like it might be pretty hellish into something pretty heavenish.
Because there's the famous show Death in Paradise, not unlike the stories that you're writing with the Canon Clement mysteries. The latest of which is the Reverend Richard Coles' Death on Location, which is the reason Richard's here. A great excuse to talk to him about loads of different things. But there's Death in Paradise. Death it can't be paradise, but you can get a collective together like yours suggest. I've never heard that before. So a collection of mates who love each other, who've decided to get together geographically.
Well, in the same village, pretty much, yeah.
Wow.
And we're lucky we're able to do it. Also, none of us have kids, so that of course makes life a bit easier. When you think about what happens after you die, but we've gone through life together in steps solidly with each other since we were in our 20s.
That's genius.
Well, it's not. I mean, I think lots of people are thinking would think similarly about that. But
please make a TV show about that.
Well, obviously, I'm thinking about the Netflix series already.
But it is. That's a great thing that we'd all love to watch.
Well, I hope so. And it's not in a highly formalised sort of way.
No.
It's loosely done, but it's done. And I have to say, it's not. We have canasta night on a Wednesday. We go around and we play cards.
But there is a village in Norway called Death, isn't there?
There is.
There is. So you could Death. I don't know, Death Valley, Death Village, Death. I don't know what you call it. Very quickly, where are we with the Archbishop of Canterbury?
Well, we are in a long and drawn-out process of trying to pick a new one.
Why is it taking so long?
Because so many irreconcilable issues need to be, if not reconciled, then balanced.
Right.
And so we're having another go at it now, but we hope we'll have an appointment in the autumn. And every blessing on the poor individual who ends up having to do it, because it's a job that destroys the person who does it. All right,
mate. Thank you for being here.
It's such a pleasure, Chris. Thanks
great to see you. Really great to see you. I love Richard. Love Reverend Richard Coles. Let's hear it for Richard. The book I thought was not my cup of tea, but it's now my pot of char. Reverend Richard Coles, A Death on Location. It's out now. It's great. A Canon Clement mystery. It's so entertaining.